So there was two world championship fights over in Japan today. Chief among them, the headliner Kazuto Ioka defending his WBA World Flyweight Championship against Noknoi Sitthiprasert, as well as Tapales, who lost his WBO Bantamweight Championship on the scale after weighing in 2 pounds too heavy, 2 pounds over the 118-pound limit, trying to basically keep himself in contention versus Shohei Omori, who was eligible to win the title, but came up short. But first I'll get to Ioka and Sitthiprasert, the main event. Ioka did a very solid job, had a very clear and conclusive victory over Noknoi. Noknoi, for his worth, I mean, after a couple of he had a troublesome first couple of rounds, getting around Ioka's jab. Ioka definitely had a good height and reach advantage, height advantage of, I believe, about 2.5 inches. He's 5'5" and change. Noknoi is about 5'2.5", maybe 5'3", and Ioka definitely had the longer arms in there. He was able to pretty much range Noknoi out in the early rounds with the jab alone, pretty much. The jab and just kind of sticking and moving. Kind of that short step in, step out, and step to the side, along with throwing that jab. Wasn't throwing a whole hell of a lot of power punches early on, but I mean that jab tends to land pretty hard. He throws pretty much everything with a fair amount of significance. They don't necessarily come the quickest of any flyweight out there, but they definitely come with a good amount of power. He's definitely sacrificing some speed for the leverage that he gets on his shots. So he makes every punch count. And he was doing that early on against Noknoi. It wasn't until the third round when Noknoi managed to appear to get into a little bit of a rhythm. And I thought the round was pretty much up for grabs towards the end of it, up until the referee wound up actually deducting a point from Kazuto Ioka for a low blow. He had given him a couple of warnings in the early rounds for hitting low, but a lot of those shots were borderline, and the shot that he actually deducted from Ioka for wasn't even a low blow. It was basically right on the belt line. That was very much a borderline shot. You could kind of go either way with it. But he wound up deducting a point, which I think was unfortunate for Ioka. But that wound up being actually the first round that I wound up giving to Noknoi Sitthiprasert. In the fourth round, Noknoi managed to, I thought, barely edge it. I thought he was getting into a little bit better of a rhythm, was starting to land the overhand right a little bit, as well as the right hand to the body. Ioka, it appeared, was being a little bit more defensive, wasn't quite throwing as much, and looking to try and get a different kind of angle and rhythm together in order to put his punches together. And I think he was also a little bit reticent to go to the body as much in the fourth round because of the warning and the warnings and the point deduction that he had got through the third and in the third round. So I wound up giving Noknoi the fourth round. So incidentally, through 4 rounds, I basically had it all even, because I thought that the third round was basically an even round, but I wound up giving it to Noknoi because of the point deduction put on Ioka. In the fifth round, it seemed like Ioka started to really get things together a little bit better. Started using a different variety of angles to his foot movement and his punches. He would kind of mix up going to the right, going to the left, and mix up which hand he would lead with. He would usually lead with jabs, double jabs, jab hooks, but also he would sometimes lead with a right hand, or he would kind of almost kind of go in looking like he was going to throw a right hand, but he would almost then take a step back and then shoot a jab all over again. And I think a lot of that movement without throwing a punch and kind of staggering his shots with regards to the timing of them started to really throw Noknoi off of the rhythm and the timing in order to be able to counter him. And especially probably around the 7th to 8th round, Ioka really started digging back to the body a lot better, and he was also starting to hide his overhand right cross a lot better as well. He was almost kind of sidestep and be able to land a right hand where I think Noknoi wasn't even expecting the right hand to be coming, because it almost didn't even look like Ioka had his feet properly under him to leverage a proper right hand getting thrown. But it just goes to show Ioka's overall skill level, his ability. He's definitely always had that. And he was pretty much just showcasing that against Noknoi, even though Noknoi was a game fighter, a very tough opponent, in terms of being in there to win the fight. It just appeared like it was overall just too much for him. In the later rounds, Ioka just kind of kept pouring it on, especially in the 10th round. He appeared to hurt Noknoi pretty badly with a right hand and the follow up to it. He was digging into the body. I think he took a lot of the starch out of Noknoi's shots with all the body work that he had done throughout the fight. Definitely paid dividends. He's a fighter that's always gone to the body extremely well. He'd go to the body, he'd go to the head. There was a left hook there was kind of a left hook to the body, left hook to the head combo that I thought did a lot of damage against Noknoi later on in the fight as well. But it was pretty much all said and done by the championship rounds. Ioka pretty much swept the last several rounds as well, and he was putting a bit of a beating on Noknoi in those last few rounds. It was looking like he might be able to get a stoppage either in the 11th or the 12th, but as badly hurt as Noknoi appeared to be in the 11th in particular, he did manage to kind of get his bearings back under him in the 12th, and he was pretty gritty, pretty game in that 12th round, looking to try and pull something out of the hat, or at the very least try and survive the full 12, which he managed to do. The judges wound up having it 117, 110 times 2, and 116, 111. Personally, basically I had it. Let's see, what was it that I had? I had it 118 118 to 110 is the way that I scored it. So a little bit wider for me as opposed to the judges. I think they were giving Noknoi a little bit more benefit of the doubt in a few of those closer rounds. As compared to what Ioka was doing, because there was a couple of rounds in there in the middle rounds as well where Noknoi had a little bit of success, but I thought it was a bit too few and far between to actually give him the round, in spite of the fact that he did slightly better than some of the other rounds where he got pretty much dominated throughout the round. But that was pretty much it for Kazuto Ioka. What's going to be next for him, I'm not entirely sure. I do know that the fighter that's his actual mandatory is in the same stable as Noknoi Sitthiprasert. So I'm kind of curious to wonder if this was part of maybe a 2-fight deal with that promotional group, the promotional group that promotes Noknoi, or the management group. Sitthiprasert is the other fighter. He's the number 1 ranked contender. Noknoi was the number 2 ranked guy. So I'm wondering if the WBA may potentially order that in the near future. If they don't, there's a few other good fights out there for him. There was the recently even deposed Naopan Kaikana, who incidentally kind of failed in his WBC title shot against Juan Chorritos Hernandez. He's actually ranked number 4 in the WBA. So, I mean, the fights against him, if not some of the other champions, in particular Zhou Shiming, would be a massive fight. That's pretty much the biggest fight to be made at flyweight right now, Kazuto Ioka versus Zhou Shiming. China versus Japan, historic rivalry, and making for pretty much a potential new historic rivalry in the sport of boxing, at the very least in the pro level. I think it would be definitely a solid fight. It would be kind of speed versus timing and power. Zhou Shiming having the speed advantage, Ioka definitely having the timing and power advantage, and overall pro skill level advantage. It's kind of funny because they both actually lost to I'm Not Wrong, both by pretty similar margins too. I'm Not beat both of them in kind of 9-3, 8-4 type fights. So it'll be I think that's a solid fight to be made. Getting to the undercard though, Marlon Tapales versus Shohei Omori. Tapales, of course, as I mentioned before, wound up losing his belt on the scales, so that will elevate Zolani Tete up to the full WBO Bantamweight champion after his successful victory yesterday. But for Tapales, in spite of the fact that he lost his title on the scales and probably was a bit weakened in trying to make the weight and everything, he went in there against Omori and was fighting a pretty even fight against him. It was pretty much his kind of pressure and kind of ruggedness, his power and everything, versus Omori's superior boxing skills and his height and reach advantage. Omori, I thought, was slightly ahead going into the 10th round, where Tapales landed a monster left uppercut. Hurt Omori extremely badly. Omori was kind of lucky to even get out of that round. And then finally in the 11th round, Tapales wound up stopping Omori fairly early on in the round. The ref pretty much had seen enough. He was taking a hell of a beating in that 10th round to even get out of it, to even make it out without getting dropped again or stopped. And Omori, it looked like it was going to be more of the same as soon as the 11th began. And so, three more minutes of punishment probably wouldn't have looked too good for him. It was doubtful that he was going to be able to survive that. And plus, I mean, with that knockdown, Tapales definitely managed to pull ahead and was looking like he was going to pull off the win. The judges actually had it 5 rounds to 4 for Tapales going into that round. 95-94, all 3 judges. So it was looking like it was definitely on the upswing for Tapales, and then on the downswing for Omori. So tough break for Omori. But, I mean, good break for Tapales, who manages to likely keep hold of a potential ranking, albeit at 122 pounds now, most likely, instead of 118. Incidentally, the WBO Super Bantamweight Championship was defended yesterday between Jesse Magdaleno, defeating Adelson Dos Santos. So we may see Magdaleno versus Tapales sometimes in the near future. I think it's a pretty solid fight as well. I definitely favor Magdaleno in it, but I can't necessarily entirely count Tapales out. I mean, he's a rugged guy, and just like he pulled through here against Omori, he had pulled through against Ponlon Sosinyu in a very similar fashion, Fight of the Year candidate for 2016. And just, all around entertaining fighter. For Omori, I'm sure he'll probably get a title shot once again, sometimes in the near future. I imagine at some point, fairly soon, he may get a shot at Zolani Tete. So considering the fact that it's kind of a tough break for him to be fighting a guy that wound up missing the weight entirely and then losing to that same fighter. So he lost to a super bantamweight. So I don't think there's necessarily a whole hell of a lot of shame in him losing in a fight that was pretty much even going into those later rounds, and a fight where he was looking like he may be able to potentially avenge his initial loss to the same fighter, to Tapales. Both losses were to Tapales, now former champion at bantamweight and potential future champion at super bantamweight at some time in the future maybe. So that was Shohei Omori versus Marlon Tapales, and I think that's going to do it for me with regards to these cards over in Japan, or these fights over in Japan rather, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.